The Andy Pollin Show.
We got to go after this with everything we got, figuring they're going to come with everything they got.
I'll start off by saying I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630 starts right now.
Okay, take two on that. I should know to check these buttons. Whoever the hell at night takes out the buttons on the microphone, stop doing that. Stop doing that, okay? Hate to start out that way, but, well, maybe I'm a little on edge. I don't know why. But anyway, Terry McLaurin, not happy. Not happy with the progress of his contract negotiations. All-Star Game last night ends unlike any other All-Star Game in the past. We will get to that. And interesting stuff from Tony and Mike as they showed up on a Maury Povich podcast. You want to know the long history of their relationship, they lay it out pretty well. And we will get to that. We'll deal with the Terry McLaurin stuff in just a few minutes. He held a news conference yesterday, which lasted over half an hour. It was at the Eastern Motors dealership where he had recorded a commercial. And right about this time yesterday, maybe 10 o'clock or so, there was something that was out that John Keim had on his podcast that McLaurin was going to talk to reporters about the status of his contract negotiations after he'd finished filming a commercial at Eastern Motors. Now, having been around the block a few times, I knew that this was not going to be hey, everybody calm down about this. Don't worry, we're going to get this done. No. That was not the tone of it at all. And Terry McLaurin, who I have really admired on and off the field, not just has he been a great player and had a career year last year, but through all the mishigas that has gone on with this organization, starting when he joined it in 2019, never saying a bad word about anybody. And the parade of marginal quarterbacks that he played with, some marginal, some absolutely horrible, never said anything about them. And then last year, everything came together as he and Jaden Daniels made magic last season, taking the team to the NFC Championship game. And you would think that an organization that has the mantra of the coach who says, I like to do hard S with good people, well, Terry McLaurin personifies that. He's just an absolute mention, somebody you would go to war with 100 times out of 100. Is he the best receiver in the league? No, he's not. He may not even be a top 10 receiver. But there are certain circumstances where you have the right guy for your team, and he is the right guy. Should he be making $35 million a year like Justin Jefferson? Probably not. But is he of value to the team where he should be paid top 10 money? Yeah, I think so. And we'll get into his comments coming up. That was kind of jolting yesterday because I've watched just about every news conference that Terry McLaurin has given since he was drafted here in the third round in 2019 and have been impressed with him every single time he has sat behind the microphones. He has been as cooperative and as open as anyone has been. Now, he's not, he doesn't say that many insightful things, but I think the way he's respected in the locker room, the way he's revered by the fan base, by the way that he has become in many ways the face of the franchise, though that's, kind of being taken away by Jaden Daniels, who has emerged as a top 5 quarterback in the league. But man, I don't think that you're going to want to have the veterans reporting next Tuesday and the microphones put in front of Jaden Daniels' face and saying, hey, how do you feel about this, Jaden? The organization doesn't want to pay your best receiver. They don't want to give you the weapon right now that you need to take the next step to try and get to the Super Bowl. What do you think about that? That's a bad look. I don't think they want. Now, you don't want to put yourself in a position where you're going to be handicapped in who you can pay and how you can move on, including Jaden Daniels, because in 2 more years, they're going to have to work out an extension for him, and there's going to be some bonus money involved and so forth. So they want to have the cap room to do that. And also, there's the other thing at play in that the next 2 years are vitally important for the team because there's a better chance to win a championship with a quarterback on a rookie deal. Jaden Daniels making whatever he makes, $20 million a year versus what could be $70, $75 million a year is meaningful. That's a big, big thing. Russell Wilson won his Super Bowl on a rookie deal. That was very helpful to the Seattle Seahawks, and I believe Dan Quinn was a part of that staff, so he understands that as well as anybody. But this is territory that I didn't think we would get to. I did not think that we would reach this territory, but here we are. Here we are right now. As for the All-Star Game, I got to be honest with you. Even with the pitch clock, it was a 4-hour-plus game. First pitch wasn't thrown until 8:25, so this was after midnight when this finally happened. But this time, when they had a tie after 9 innings, a 6-6 tie, as the American League had come from 6-0 down to tie the game, there was no Bud Selig to throw his palms up in the air like, hey, we're out of pitchers, I don't know what to do. I believe that was 2003, and that's when they came up with that cockamamie nonsense where the winning league would have home field advantage in the postseason, in the World Series. They've since scrapped that. And the new way to settle ties is with something of a home run derby. Now, what makes this kind of complicated is that your best home run hitters had already left the game. The two MVPs, Shohei Ohtani and Aaron Judge, they'd already showered and left. They'd left the ballpark. So, and the managers knew this. So in putting together the contingency plan that if the game went to in extra innings or to a tie after 9, this three-batter, three-swing home run derby swing-off is what they call it, would have to be decided by players who are going to stick around and who would be able to warm up quickly and so forth. So they went with guys who they knew were either going to be backups or be willing to do this. And before the game, Kyle Schwarber was asked by manager Dave Roberts if he would do it, and he said sure, and he turned out to be the one that won the game. 3 swings in this little home run derby, and that put the National League ahead enough for this to happen as it came down to Jonathan Aranda, Rays first baseman, in the end of the swing-off to keep things going for the American League.
Aranda slices a fly ball to left center field, headed towards the wall, but short, and the National League wins it in the first swing-off. Kyle Schwarber wins it, going 3 for 3. And the National League, after watching a 6-0 lead disappear in the game, still win this All-Star Game with a swing-off.
And only the second win in 11 All-Star Games for the National League, for whatever it's worth. Kyle Schwarber talking to Kevin Burkhardt after he won the game.
Well, you made some history. What was it like to participate in that?
It was interesting. Exciting, fun. There's a lot of guys who deserve this, but I'm happy that it's going home with us to Philly.
Take me through when your thought process. Was it once you got one, do you just get red hot like a three-point shooter? What was your thought process going in, knowing you only had 3 swings?
Oh, man. Just trying to not hit a home run, I guess. Just trying to stay short, because if I would have tried to hit a home run, I would probably hit my guys over there. But just happy that it worked out for us, and the National League's going home with the win.
You got a great reception, though. Guys were jumping on you. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was awesome. The guys were really into it, and they were yelling, screaming, cheering me on every swing, and then that last one goes over, they were all pumped. It was a lot of fun.
Now, the reaction I'm seeing is that people like this. People who were up to see it enjoyed the way this game finished. And it's an exhibition. It's an exhibition, and it's a TV show. And, okay, it was, 55 years ago that Pete Rose bowled over Ray Fosse in the 13th inning to win it for the National League at Riverfront Stadium. That's as dramatic as you're going to get. Those days are gone. Those days are over. You're not going to have any player, even with a Pete Rose mentality, willing to risk his body and essentially end Ray Fosse's career. He did play longer in baseball, but his days as an All-Star were over after Pete Rose seriously injured him at the plate on that. That's done. So guys make millions and millions and millions of dollars. Do it this way. It's exhibition. It's fun. The home run derby numbers were up a little bit this year. people are accepting of this. The traditionalists, yeah, I mean, it's not baseball like it was invented to be, but it's baseball that engages people. There's nothing else going on at this time of the year, so why not do it? The Fox crew wrapping it up. That was A-Rod and Derek Jeter and David Ortiz and Kevin Burkhardt. Their look at what they saw, including, and if you haven't seen this yet, I urge you to watch it on YouTube. They did a really nice tribute to Hank Aaron and the day he broke Babe Ruth's record, which was April 8th of 1974. And they used the recordings of the radio call from Milo Hamilton, the Braves announcer, and Vin Scully, who authored one of the greatest lines that he ever did, and he had a bunch of them, but and I'm paraphrasing here, what an awesome thing it was to see a black man in the Deep South break a record of an all-time great. I mean, you couldn't have written it any better and delivered it any better than Vin Scully. So that was part of it last night as well. So this is the crew with the wrap-up of what they saw in Atlanta last night.
I had more fun than what I thought it was going to be like. I'm telling you. I mean, you see the guys coming in, extra inning. I don't know if you guys remember that one game where we had to wait for a long time for the extra inning. I mean, this is perfect right here. Schwarber coming in, hitting 3 bombs to pull his team ahead. I mean, majestic. Can't get no better than that.
I tell you, when I heard about it, I didn't know what to think. I was like, come on now, what are we doing? If I'm being honest, what are we doing out here? But it was fun. It was exciting. And quite frankly, I think it's much better than going out there. They've had a long day. They had a great few days here in Atlanta. And it was what a wonderful way to end it.
I think the fans were into it. How about the players? I mean, they were jumping on Schwarber when he won it. It was really, really cool. And then in the game, obviously, you had some really signature moments tonight. What was your favorite, Derek?
My favorite was the tribute to Hank Aaron. I mean, look, we were talking about Hank in the pregame. And, you know, he's not only just a Hall of Fame player, he's a Hall of Fame person.
Yeah.
And all of us here have had a chance to get to know him, spend some time with him. And I thought it was a fitting tribute to Hank Aaron.
Without a doubt, I have to say it was one of my favorite moments also, because it was like having him right here with us. You know, it was perfect at his hometown where he played for many years. Everybody getting familiar with. I mean, I feel like I was watching him play at that moment. Seriously.
I mean, Hank, we've talked, so much about him. He's great. I think the one thing that stood out for me is how important it is to make contact, and especially against elite pitching. You saw it in the first inning, Ohtani, blooper, Acuna, Marte with a double, and again in the ninth. The ability to make contact against top-tier pitching is something that will never go away.
Sue, a win for the National League on the first swing-off as Kyle Schwarber goes 3 for 3 for the National League. Meantime, storm clouds brewing, and they always use the All-Star Game for both sides to kind of give their side of the game. You had Ron Banford, the commissioner, talking about a variety of things, including baseball players participating in the Olympics next year in 2028 in Los Angeles. And then maybe it's saber rattling. I don't know. But there is apparently going to be, and it looks like anyway, it looks like there is going to be another work stoppage coming up, not after this season, but after the 2026 season. Tony Clark, the executive director of the Baseball Players Association, talking to the writers yesterday, said talk of a salary cap is, quote, institutionalized collusion. A cap is not about a partnership. A cap isn't about growing the game. A cap is about franchise values and profits. He says a salary cap historically has limited contract guarantees associated with it, literally pits one player against another, and is often what we share with players as the definitive non-competitive system. It doesn't reward excellence. It undermines from an organizational standpoint. That's why this is not about competitive balance. It's not about fair versus not fair. The history is more lockouts, more worker stoppages as a result of that system being in place. Well, it should be pointed out that baseball's had more work stoppages than any other sport. They have had 9 of them. The last lockout lasted 99 days in 2022. They did reach an agreement on a 5-year deal, but that's up December 1st of 2026. The disparity is, I mean, it's stark. It's nothing like the other sports because, well, you have a salary cap in the other sports. It's a different kind of a cap in the different sports with the soft cap and what you can do, deferred money, the whole thing. But you don't have anything like this where the Dodgers and the Mets are spending nearly 5 times as much as the Miami Marlins. who have a payroll of $69 million. The last time a small market team won was Kansas City in 2015. Rob Manfred, the commissioner, has informed the players that with the salary cap, it could be advantageous, as I think it would be for the rank and file, because as he points out here, 10% of the players earn 72% of the money. I mean, that's kind of like the wealth in this country. And while he thinks, I guess, and maybe the way they calculate and the way things could go here, they think it's advantageous that Shohei can get a $700 million contract, that Juan Soto can get $756 million, and that's going to be beneficial for everybody. Now, baseball has proposed a floor of at least $100 million. And Clark doesn't like that. He says, let me be clear on this. We've never been opposed to a floor. We're opposed to comes with it, or at least historically has. I would say this about the floor at $100 million. If you have a $100 million floor combined with a cap, and let's say the cap is maybe 200, I think that would be beneficial to the players. I do. Now, if the cap goes to like 300, there would be teams that would say, well, yeah, I mean, even if we spend 100 or 150, we're not going to be competitive with the $300 million teams. So that could be a deterrent as well. The luxury tax, which was supposed to mitigate a lot of this, and I think Clark is right about this, that hasn't really worked, because what was supposed to happen was the teams who were paying the luxury tax, that money would funnel down to the small market teams, and they would be able to jump in with the tax and start to pay players. Well, the problem with that is they're just collecting the money and saying, yeah, I mean, even if we spend all that we got in taxes, we're still not going to be playing the same kind of ball that the Dodgers and the Mets and the Yankees and the Red Sox are playing. We just can't do it. So I do think there's going to be a work stoppage, and baseball's always survived them, even the one that knocked out the World Series 30 years ago. But I would say this, as football eats up more and more and more of the offseason, and football becomes such a dominant force, the baseball catch-up is going to be a lot harder than it was in 1995 when Cal Ripken helped to revive it by breaking Lou Gehrig's record, and some new stadiums were built and things like that helped to bring the game back. It's going to be, it will survive. I mean, it's not going away. I mean, baseball is baseball, and people still love it, and I still love it, and still love going to games, watching games, all that stuff. But if you're looking at yourself as a business, you have to wonder, what is a work stoppage going to mean to both sides? Now, the players, they always catch up, and they always continue to go forward. Well, that's it on the salary. We can't go any further than that. And then they get the big salaries. The question is, what is this doing for the rank and file of the union, which is Tony Clark's responsibility? There's no worries for the guys at the top of the market, the 10%, as Manfred says, where you got, so few players, 10% of the players earning 72% of the money. Nobody's worried about that 10%. Well, what about the other 90%? And how does that get fixed? I've been a part of unions before, and I have been in one since 1987, which is going to prove to be advantageous to me in a few years when I start to collect my pension. But for a lot of the time I was in another union, which was the Wire Service Guild, it was not advantageous to me because there was a cap on how much money I could make. And I thought I was more valuable than some of the people I worked with, but there was only so much money that I could make. All right, we will dive further into the Terry McLaurin kvetching. I don't want to say kvetching because that casts a negative light on him, but the Terry McLaurin frustration over where things are less than a week before veterans are due at training camp. We'll get to that and more as we continue. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
I've been watching this football team, Redskins, Washington football team, Commanders, for like 60-plus years. I've seen almost every game over the last 55 years or so. And I can't really remember a day like yesterday with a crazy juxtaposition. The team's all-time leading receiver, Art Monk, is going to have his number 81 retired before a game in November against Seattle. The team announced that yesterday morning. At the same time that was announced, in a very nicely put-together video tribute, came news that Terry McLaurin was going to speak to the media after his commercial shoot at Eastern Motors about the status of his contract negotiations, and I knew that was not going to go well. So on one hand, you have, and he may be, Art Monk, the most beloved player in franchise history. He's among them. He got the longest ovation ever in Canton, 4 minutes plus, when he was introduced for the Hall of Fame in 2008. And you have Terry McLaurin, who's the most, I think, beloved player on the team right now, maybe 1A with Jaden Daniels, but given what McLaurin has been through all the horrible years that he played here, and always been respected and loved by his teammates, a captain, the whole thing. It was crazy, like two ships passing in the night. Now, I'll get to Monk, but this was McLaurin late yesterday morning, early yesterday afternoon when he sat down with a handful of reporters, and he talked for half an hour about where things are and minced no words right from the beginning.
I've been pretty frustrated, I'm not going to lie. Everything that has transpired up until this point has just been disappointing and frustrating. I've wanted to continue my career here. I've created my life here. My wife and I have bought our first home here, so this has been somewhere where I've always wanted to be. And, just to see how things have played out has been disappointing. Obviously, I understand everything's a business, but at the same time, I want to put myself in a position where, I'm valued and, I feel appreciated and things like that. And, unfortunately, that hasn't transpired the way I wanted to. So, I'm just trying to take things day by day. And at the beginning of this process, I honestly just wanted to, for things to work out. And, I thought things were going to kind of be more progressive than they have, and so at this point it's kind of just up in the air.
Has it surprised you that they've taken whatever tack they've taken, and have you now opened your mind up to being somewhere else?
I haven't got to that part yet. It has been disappointing. Going into this offseason, I thought there was going to be more progress, and I know those discussions were there at the beginning, and since OTAs and minicamp, we haven't had any discussions. We haven't talked at all, and that's tough. Obviously with camp coming around the corner, and so I haven't thought that far yet to really, see what's next in the standpoint of leaving or not. Because I want to be here, and I want to make that abundantly clear. Like I really appreciate this fan base, this city. This place has become my home. I've poured a lot of myself and given everything that I've can every single day since I've been here, through the wins, losses, good, bad. And, but at the end of the day, you do want to feel valued and you do want to feel appreciated. And I think, how the market is today, it pretty much conveys what guys of my caliber are deserving of. And I feel like I fit that in that box because of just how I've always carried myself on and off the field and the value I know I bring to a team. And I know I bring to my teammates, and I know that I bring to an organization. And, I don't want to put myself in a position to feel like you have to beg for somebody to see your worth and your value. You feel like you've put that out there year in, year out. Everything, previous regimes and even now, I've done everything that's been asked of me. I'm not perfect at all. I've definitely made mistakes, but I've always led with the right foot. And I've tried to put myself in a position to be a person that can be valued and respected amongst his coaches and his teammates, but also be a dog on the field. I don't want to get that mistaken. I feel like I'm one of the best receivers in this league. And, it's not because of me just feeling that way. I feel like I've proven that, and I'm going to continue to work hard to prove that. And that's kind of where things are. So I haven't really, gotten to the part of trade or not. Like I want things to work out, but at the end of the day, it takes two to tango, you know what I mean? And so however things go these next few days, I know camp's around the corner. I'll talk to my agent and we'll go from there. But overall, you just want to be appreciated and valued for who you are and what you bring to the team, and also what you feel like you could continue to do, because best believe I don't feel like I played my best ball yet, and I still feel like I have a lot of great things that I can do and bring to a team. And so it's disappointing that it's gotten to this point, and the toughest part is being away from my teammates, honestly, because I came into part of OTAs and things like that with the assumption things were going to progress a lot quicker than they have, and it's disappointing because I've always been a team guy and a leader. And the great thing about the great thing I take away is I've gotten a lot of support from my teammates. I've played golf with them. I've hung out with them. I've talked to multiple guys, and they know where I stand. They know how I feel. And I think the tough part is they have to decipher things through the media. And, they know I'm an open book. So everybody I've talked to, I've been 100% open and honest with them of where I stand and how things have been. And so I know I got their respect and their support, and I'm going to continue to prove that when I'm on the field whenever that time is. So, just because I'm in this scenario doesn't change the fact of who I am and my character, because I'm going to continue to be Terry McLaurin no matter where I'm at. And that's who's God's built me to be. That's who I've tried to prove who I am, and I'm going to continue to walk in that.
That's part one from Terry McLaurin yesterday. 2 questions, more than 4.5 minutes of answer. So he was ready to unload. Inside and outside the locker room, this is anything but a positive. Now, maybe there's a great plan that's being executed by Adam Peters and his staff to get the right contract, to make sure that they don't cripple themselves in any future negotiations, that they're not paying a player who's and the ESPN just came out with another poll. They put him just outside of the top 10, not a top 10 guy who maybe wants to be paid in the top 5 range. Okay, maybe that. But what he's talking about with his teammates, I mean, there's nobody more respected on this team than Terry McLaurin. So the rest of the players are looking around and going, whoa, if they're going to treat Terry like that, what are they going to do to me? And then the fan base, which has loved Terry McLaurin for the entire time he's been here, including the time that the team stunk and he was one of the few bright lights, that's not a positive either. Not that they're overly concerned about what that might do for ticket sales or whatever, but they've been turning around the perception of the team, and this flies in the face of everything they said and done. And here we are. It's the middle of July. They're 6 months removed from the last time they played a game, and less than a week removed before veterans are due in training camp. More McLaurin.
We haven't talked in over a month, and obviously with camp around the corner, it's becoming a little bit of crunch time. And, obviously you want to be in a position where you're building to what we did last year, and Jaden and I continue to build along with the offense. And that was the thing. Before I took a step back, it was things were going great on the field. And, the connection and the offense and the energy was just amazing. And so to see where it was then and where it's at now is definitely disappointing. So I don't necessarily know what happens next, but without any progressive discussions, it's kind of hard to see how I step on the field. So, I'm just trying to take it day by day, honestly, and I know the value that I bring. And, again, I understand that there's a whole business and things like that, but I know that I'm going to continue to play at a high level. The Lord has blessed me to stay healthy up until this point. I haven't missed a game in 5 years. I haven't missed practices. I block. I play full game. You know what I mean? And so I take extreme care of my body. Anybody in that building knows that whether it's rehab, off the field, I invest a lot of time and money into my body, and I'm going to continue to do that so I can be the best that I can when I step on the football field. So I can't really speculate what happens next. Again, I just got to take things day by day, stay in contact with my agent, and hopefully that we can have some sort of talks that are progressive. But if not, then then you have to take steps from there. Yeah, and that step could be holdout, which I think would be a very, very bad look with the camp opening next week. One of the things he said about his health, which is accurate, hasn't missed a game in 5 years, been available. That's huge for that position where there are a lot of injuries. And he also made this sort of interesting case, because I think what's working against him is he's going to turn 30 years old. And the receivers that are being paid the big money, a lot of them are much younger, including the one that was just signed yesterday, Garrett Wilson, $32.5 million average, 4-year, $130 million, $90 million guaranteed. He's 24, not yet 25. And McLaurin turning 30, but he said this. He says, my case is different, not only from a health standpoint, but this will only be my 7th year. He said he barely played his first 2 years in college. There's not a lot of tread on my tires. I think he means there is a lot of tread left on the tires. He said, this is the first year we made a deep playoff run, and you know what I mean? I've been extremely healthy through all that. So he's making the case that because the team has stunk and has played in a total of, 4 playoff games since he's been here, that first year when they lost to Tom Brady and the Bucks,
and then this last year where they played in the 3 playoff games. So that's sort of an interesting way to make a case for yourself, but it's accurate. It's not like we've been the Kansas City Chiefs in the playoffs every year. We in the 6 years that he's played in 4 playoff games, and he came here having been a guy who was on the bench for a couple of years at Ohio State. But I'm sure the age is being used against him as well. Meantime, you had the Art Monk announcement yesterday by the team that they were going to retire his number, and they sent a whole bunch of people down there to his place. Art Monk lives in Florida now, so a bunch of representatives were there. Doug Williams, who played with him, of course, and the 2 members of the posse, along with him, Gary Clark and Ricky Sanders. Josh Harris was there. And I saw Mark Klaus, who's the new president of the team. He showed up. And I know how much Gary admires Art because I did a television show with Gary. It's almost 25 years ago. But he couldn't say enough good things about Art Monk. He reveres Art Monk. So Gary was chosen to make this presentation, this surprise presentation at his house when all these people showed up. I'm sure they worked it out with his wife and the rest of his family, but Art did seem surprised when these people barged into his house, and Gary Clark, reading off his phone, delivered this little presentation.
Art, for everything you've done, not just for this team, but for all of us who had the honor to play alongside you. This is a moment that's been a long time coming. You showed us what greatness looked like every single day, in your work ethic, and your humility, and how you carried this franchise with dignity. You changed the standard for wide receivers, not just here in Washington, but across the league. And today, we get to do what should have been done a long time ago. We get to honor you and tell you on behalf of your brothers, this organization, and the entire Commanders Redskin family that your jersey will be retired, number 81, will forever belong to you. You, me, and Ricky Sanders, we are the posse, and now this team is making your legacy ride with every fan, every player, every young man watching. You've earned this. We love you, brother. That's from Ricky, it's from me, and it's from all the people from the Burgundy and Gold family.
Appreciate it.
You're a rock star.
And they also had stuff from Josh Harris, a little tape thing from Joe Gibbs.
For my first call, I bought the franchise.
Oh, okay.
You're incredible, man, human being and legend for us, and I can't wait to have number 81 from Syracuse hanging in the out there with the flags.
Yeah, absolutely.
And never use it again. It'll be up there as a beacon of what it means to be great, both as a human being, as a player, and as a man.
Okay.
Thank you, man. I'm so happy
sure.
to be
Thank
here.
you. Absolutely. Appreciate it.
This is a tough assignment for me. How do you capture Art Monk in a short video? I'm going to try, so here we go. He was mentally and physically tough, a real leader. Art was quiet, determined, but when Art spoke, he was on the leadership group of our team. Everybody listened.
And to highlight that's an important point that Gibbs makes at the end, because he didn't talk. He didn't talk much in the locker room, and it was tough getting something out of him with reporters, too. I mean, they didn't do it the way they do it now, like they bring out the star players for news conferences. It was up to the player to either agree or not to agree to talk to reporters in front of his locker, and Art sometimes wasn't even around. Occasionally he would, but he didn't have much to say. But the famous body bag game, which was in the 1990 season, where the Redskins went to Philadelphia on a Monday night, and they got their top 2 quarterbacks knocked out of the game, and Brian Mitchell had to finish up the game at QB, and as they were taking one player after another off the field, I think one of the Eagle players said, "You got enough body bags for those guys?" And if you watch the highlights on YouTube, you see it was a different game. You could beat the crap out of players, including quarterbacks. So it was different. But they got humiliated in that Monday night game. And there was a rematch in the playoffs. There was a wild card game that was to be played in Philadelphia. And during that week, Art Monk did something that they said they'd never seen before. Remember, he had come to the team in 1980s. He'd been there a decade. And he got up and he made a speech to the team about how they were not going to get embarrassed again like they had been in Philly. And they won the game, and they said that made a difference. This week, or whenever this was recorded, when Monk was given this honor by the team, he actually did get up and gave a speech and went close to 2 minutes on it.
I mean, I wasn't expecting this, obviously, but I appreciate the acknowledgement. I played the game because I loved the game, and I loved to play. I loved my teammates. I loved being out there with them. Practice was always tough, but when you're playing with a bunch of guys who have this same goal in mind to do well and to excel in what they do, it makes it fun. And I was fortunate enough to have that like most of my career. And because of that, we did things that a lot of other teams didn't do. We went to Super Bowls, we went to playoff games. And like I said, we were a team, but the bond that we had, and I think a lot of it was caused by Joe, like I said, we were more than teammates. We were family. Yeah, we could say we were friends, but we were family. And we treated each other like family. And so that, I think, was the big difference. And I'm just honored to, I'm just so thankful for all of you, my family, my Redskins family, teammates, coaches, administrative people, even the ones that weren't there when I was there. You're still family because you bear now the commander's name. And so I don't know what else to say, but thank you.
That's about as much as you're going to get out of Art Monk, and they will honor him in November by retiring his number. They've started to do more and more of these lately. Remember, Sammy Baugh for like 50 years was the only number officially retired. And then during the George Floyd tragedy, they finally made things right with Bobby Mitchell. It's a long story, which I've told in the past and will tell again, about how they totally embarrassed him with Steve Spurrier in 2002 when he initially tried to bring Joe Theismann's 7 and Sonny Jurgensen's number 9 out of mothballs, and then they were put back in. But Bobby Mitchell's 49 was given to a backup tight end, which he said was the ultimate insult. But anyway, they made things right, sadly, after Bobby died, by retiring 49. Sonny's number was retired a couple of years ago, and then Darryl Green last year. And now Art Monk, the two clear emissions right now are 44 for Riggins, and I think even more importantly, Charlie Taylor. Charlie Taylor should not slip through the cracks at 42. And I would even make the case, as great as Monk was, Charlie Taylor, for his era, was a better receiver. He retired as the number 1 receiver of all time. I don't think Monk did that. I think he'd already been passed by Jerry Rice. But whatever. They're both great receivers. And I think that Charlie needs to be recognized as well, retiring to 42. Let me just take one that's not a small issue for me, might be for you, but there's an issue that I have with Liam Griffin, who wrote about this in the Washington Times. And I know he's too young to remember this, but this is really a foolish mistake. He points out that Monk was the first receiver in the NFL to catch 100 passes in a season, which he did in 1984, and the first to have more than 900 career catches, which he did after passing Steve Largent. But then there's this paragraph from Liam Griffin's story in the Washington Times today. Yet with just 3 Pro Bowl appearances and a pair of All-Pro nods, Monk flew mostly under the radar. Not locally, Liam. He was regarded as a great player here for a long time. And then he writes this: despite sharing legendary touchdown celebrations with Washington's Fun Bunch in the 1980s, Monk was never one to hog the spotlight. What? No, he didn't hog the spotlight. You're right about that. But this sentence, despite sharing legendary touchdown celebrations with Washington's Fun Bunch in the 80s. Let me just explain something to you, Liam. The Fun Bunch was created as a tribute to Art Monk, who was injured and couldn't play in the postseason after the 1982 season. He had broken his foot in either the last game or the second to last game, and so they were left with Charlie Brown, who was an excellent receiver, Alvin Garrett, and Virgil Say, and then Doc Walker jumped in on this, and maybe there's another tight end or whatever, but this was a tribute to Monk when one of them caught a touchdown pass, which was to say, hey, Art, we're giving a high five to you just to remember that you're a big part of this team. And when we score, we want you to be recognized. So when you write something here that he was a part of Washington's Fun Bunch celebration, no, he wasn't. It was a tribute to Art Monk, who couldn't be in the Fun Bunch celebration because he couldn't be on the field because he was hurt. So please, please get these things accurate. I mean, come on. The people like me are available to check on these things. Let's check on them. Get them right. No reason to have that wrong. All right. More on the Terry McLaurin situation coming up. The Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630. Well, we got trouble in paradise, right? Everything was going so well for the Washington Commanders and, for that matter, Terry McLaurin. Seemed certain that he'd have a contract extension by now, but the clock is ticking. Veterans are due in next Tuesday. McLaurin has no contract. And things ramped up significantly yesterday when Terry McLaurin held a news conference that lasted more than half an hour with gripes about where things are going in his negotiations. Haven't talked in over a month. He says he is frustrated by it, and he's not ruling out the idea of holding out a training camp, even though he's got a contract 1 year left. Whew. Of all the players that have ever played for this organization, this one is one that is absolutely stunning to me. I mean, look, if something gets done today, tomorrow, even over the weekend, no big deal. You know, Veterans Report Tuesday, everything's fine. Yeah, things got contentious for a while, but things are okay now. That's how we move from there. But it doesn't seem like it's heading in that direction. Now, I will say this. We haven't heard anything from the Commanders other than at the end of the season, Adam Peters said, oh, yeah, we want Terry to be here for a long, long time. He didn't go as far as to say, I guarantee we're going to get a deal done, but the implication was we have no idea of trading. Well, I got to leave your options open. But, it wasn't like, well, he's got to sign something that's going to be, good for the team and good for him, and we're not just going to give him the farm, something like that. They didn't do any of that. Didn't do any of that. So here we are, and I remember this. This was Kirk Cousins going into what would have been, I guess, the 2016 season, right? So his last 2 years in Washington, which were 16 and 17, he played under the franchise tag. And when a quarterback gets to that, it's the beginning of the end because the numbers on the tag get so high, it just gets ridiculous, and at some point you got to cut him loose or trade him or something like that. But, this was an organization which was not known to be very fiscally smart. So instead of giving Kirk Cousins what he wanted at the time, $19 million a year, which would have put him right in the middle of the market even then, they want to play hardball with him. So when he got to the end of his rookie contract, which was after 4 years, after the 2015 season, the last 2 years of which he had been a starter and had been a starter as part of the team, in years past, off and on, that it rather than give him, the market money as a starting quarterback, as a franchise quarterback, they decided that they were going to play hardball with him. And Bruce Allen held a news conference to purposely embarrass Kirk Cousins. That was the idea of it. Hey, we're going to give him more money than any other quarterback guaranteed than Andrew Luck. And Andrew Luck at that point was at the top of the game. He was the best quarterback in the league. I don't know what the big deal. Yeah, and so Kirk played it right. I think his last deal in Washington, his rookie deal, it was like $600,000 a year. So he went with no guarantees, suffers a career-ending injury first year of the tag. That's it. That's all the money he gets. Winds up playing under two tags, and then they cut him loose to bring in Alex Smith, and we all know how that worked out. So they haven't nothing from the team yet. But McLaurin spoke long yesterday. I mean, he played the long game and aired a lot of different grievances and, said, among other things, that nobody's talked in a month here. And that he should be treated differently for what he has done for this team. That he can't understand how this is all happening, and he says that absolutely, even though he's not ruling out the possibility of holding out, He wants to be in Washington.
The tough part is just missing the time and feeling like you've missed out on building with your teammates and your quarterback and the new additions. And each team and each year is different. So when I feel like, I'm a missing piece of that, I feel like that definitely affects the team, and hearing from my teammates and see how they feel. They're confused as well. So it's just not a lot of clarity, At the end of the day, I just want clarity, If they don't feel like I'm part of their future, then okay, just tell me that. I'm a grown adult. I can handle hard truths. What I've been through in my life, I've definitely been through tough things, been through adversity, been through situations where people may not have saw my value, and that's okay. But somebody will, and I'm gonna continue to give them my all. Whoever feels that way.
Ooh, talk about other teams. That gets their attention, gets everybody's attention. For that matter. But the number one person's attention that they have to be concerned about is the franchise. And the franchise is Jayden Daniels, who in 1 year has become recognized as one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the game. For a team that has been searching for a franchise quarterback, and I don't think this is hyperbole, 40 years. I think the last real franchise quarterback that this team had was Joe Theismann, who broke his leg in November of 1985. And you can look at any of the, stopgap quarterbacks that they've had since, including Mark Rippon, who won a Super Bowl. But I wouldn't consider him to be a franchise quarterback. He was a good quarterback who played with a great team. This guy is a guy who can elevate you. And we haven't heard from Jayden Daniels on this Terry McLaurin situation, but you damn well better know that when they open camp on next week, whether it's Tuesday when they report or Wednesday, and he's got his first media availability, and Terry McLaurin's a holdout, that's going to be the first question. What about McLaurin? What do you think about the organization not having him signed? You and he made great things happen last year. Your development is riding a lot with him and how he helps you along the way. You've got a great relationship. How can this happen? I don't think they want those questions there. And McLaurin says that he and Jayden have talked.
Yeah, I have. And, I've heard from a lot. We've had a lot of great conversations, and I'll keep the specifics between us. But it's great to have his support, honestly, and to know that he has my back, and to see how we've grown in our relationship, not just on the field but off the field. And so, to know the value you bring to your quarterback, and to know that he sees and feels that means a lot to me. It really does, and he knows I got his back too. Not on the field, but as a person. We've had a lot of personal, talks, not just now, but over the course of his entire first year together. And him and I haven't scratched the surface as what we can do as a duo, you know what I mean? From, we, as a team, we had a slow start to the season. We had some hiccups, but we were cooking by the end of the year, you know what I mean? And I feel like with the additions that have been made as well, like, that is only going to help everything. But I know what I bring to the table, and I feel like he does too. And I truly believe we need each other.
Yeah, we cannot have an unhappy Jayden Daniels because Terry McLaurin isn't signed. I just maybe it can. Maybe they sit Jayden down before training camp and say, look, we're going to get this done. It's going to get worked out. But you would really make the situation worse if you're asked about this and you throw us under the bus. Don't think that's going to happen. I don't think it's going to get to that, but that's in the wind. And then one last thing from McLaurin. And unfortunately, because of the salary cap, this is no longer relevant. But pre-salary cap, this is the way things used to work. You got rewarded for what you did in the past. You can't afford to do that anymore. But this is McLaurin kind of making that case.
I'm hoping that they see who I've been, not even just before DQ and AP got here, but who I was when it was terrible. You know what I mean? When things were adverse, when there was a lot of chaos going on, I still held firm and strong. And I held my head held high, and I was a leader. You know what I mean? I'm going to continue to do that when things are good. Like, things are good or bad doesn't change who I am. Money doesn't change who I am. It's the character of who I've proven to be. And so hopefully, they see that value, and, they make that a priority to get some finality to this. One way or another.
Yeah, one way or another. Now, you hear trade stuff. I don't think a trade is going to happen. But, again, of all the players who have ever played with this organization, bitter contract dispute and Terry McLaurin just don't seem to go together. We had a development the other day. The Jets signed a much younger receiver, and I think this has as a part of this as well. The fact that Terry's turning 30 is working against him. But they got Garrett Wilson signed to the Jets. It's he's just been named a top 10 receiver in this ESPN poll, and he's top 5 paid. He just got a deal, $32.5 million, 130 total, $90 million guaranteed, and that would seem to be a mark that he's shooting for right now. He's saying, okay, maybe I'm not a top 10 receiver, maybe I'm older, but my value to this team is certainly what Garrett Wilson's is to the Jets and more. I think that's a case that he's trying to make. As far as the Wilson deal and what it means, Adam Schefter on our morning show yesterday on Sportsmanlike with his thoughts on it.
Jim Harbaugh must have been a voter because Justin Herbert finished ahead of Jalen Hurts, and Jim Harbaugh thinks Justin Herbert's the best quarterback in the league. So, I mean, there are a lot of interesting votes, and I find it hard to believe that Jalen Hurts is the 9th best quarterback in the National Football League when he helped the Eagles win the Super Bowl last year, when he's basically been head-to-head with Patrick Mahomes in the 2 Super Bowls that he's played, and you can't tell me that Jalen Hurts is the 9th. Now, I don't know who we're putting him in front of, but he's not the 9th best quarterback. That's a great list for Monday, July 14th, Evan. That's manna from heaven for you guys is what that is.
And Tuesday, July 15th, and Wednesday, July 16th. Let's not just limit it to that. But you actually just triggered a thought. Because when you said Jim Harbaugh was a voter, a couple of years ago, Greeny came on our show, and this is when your guy, Harbaugh, was coaching your school, is what I meant. Your school was coached by Jim Harbaugh at Michigan. And he said, I wouldn't be surprised if Harbaugh was going to be the coach of the Chargers. And we're like, why? And he said, well, Harbaugh professed his love about Herbert to me at a funeral. This is what Greeny said. Like, literally.
They've been talking throughout the offseason, and I think there are a lot of ramifications to this. Aside from the fact that you keep a core player under contract for the next 6 years through the 2030 season. If you go beyond that, it's essentially the first Jets round pick to be extended after his 3rd season under the new rookie wage scale. That hadn't happened, and it puts him in a situation where he's one of the highest paid wide receivers in football. But beyond that, if you look at it, was an incredible Jets draft class. Now, I know they've changed regimes and fired Joe Douglas, and that's sort of the way that's happened. But if you look back at that draft class from 2022, Garrett Wilson went early in the draft. Sauce Gardner was the number 4 overall pick that year. He's up for an extension, and I would imagine it wouldn't be a surprise if he got one before training camp began, shortly after it began. Jermaine Johnson, number 26, he probably will wind up getting extended. Breece Hall is up for an extension. That was a really good draft class for the New York Jets. There's a foundation of players here that this new regime with Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji can work with and build upon.
Adam, we're closing in on training camp starting. By this time next week, most teams will have all of their rookies in. Yet the second round is still big spotlight here because only 2 of those second-round picks have been signed by their teams. Browns linebacker Carson Swishinger and Texans receiver Jaden Higgins. What's the holdup with the remaining 30 players in the second round and why those rookies have not inked their deals?
Well, it's very interesting, Courtney, because both those players that you mentioned, Carson Schwessinger and Jaden Higgins, both had their contracts fully guaranteed, which hadn't happened before for second-round draft picks. So if they get their picks guaranteed, well, the other players and the other agents, they want their contracts guaranteed, and teams have not been willing to do that. And so there's been a standoff between teams and players picked in the second round regarding whether or not those deals will be fully guaranteed the way that these first 2 deals have gotten done. Now, what's interesting here to me is you look at it, Quinshawn Judkins gets arrested over the weekend with a misdemeanor charge for domestic violence. He is one of those unsigned second-round draft picks. You tell me, are the Browns going to be more likely or less likely to guarantee his full deal now after the incident this past weekend?
Sure.
So if he's the guy that, gives in, then that could impact others. So it's interesting. I don't know if the public cares much about whether a second-round draft pick's fully guaranteed. Just tell us when they're signed. But that is the holdup as to why 30 of the 32 second-round draft picks are unsigned at a day and age when it should be ridiculously simple to get all these draft picks signed.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that the league put in place so we wouldn't have this kind of stuff. But we do. The draft picks used to, hold out. We had it here. Heath Schuler, maybe his career was damaged by the fact that he missed the first 2 weeks of training camp in a holdout. It was a common thing that would happen. Doesn't happen anymore. And second rounder seems silly. I mean, get it done. But they want the guaranteed money on that. The league has been holding the line on that. There's collusion talk and all that stuff. But they managed to keep things in check to some degree. More from Schefter, and I don't think this would happen, but could it be possible that with T.J. Watt in the same circumstance as Terry McLaurin, that there's a swap there? Could that be? I mean, and maybe that's part of the holdup, that Adam Peters behind the scenes is maybe the Micah Parson things has been kind of shot down, and I don't think the Cowboys really need another receiver, and I can't imagine this organization making a deal with the Cowboys. But T.J. Watt, Pittsburgh, you'd have to give up more than McLaurin to get him. But how about that? This is Schefter on the Watt holdout.
The issue there right now would seem to be the length of the years in the contract. Again, Trey Hendrickson and T.J. Watt, they want more years. The teams want to give them fewer years. Both players are in their 30s. So for the players, it's about getting as much guaranteed money as you can over a longer period of time. And for the teams, they want to keep the players, although obviously it feels like Pittsburgh is more intent upon keeping Trey Hendrickson than Cincinnati is, or Pittsburgh is more intent upon keeping T.J. Watt than Cincinnati is with Trey Hendrickson. But nobody's been able to get a deal done. And I think the bigger issue right now is the length of the contract, which equals guaranteed money, right? Like that's the issue on both. I think Pittsburgh and T.J. Watt somehow will figure out a way. Best I could tell, they haven't gotten close recently, but we'll see if they can figure out a way to get that done by the time camp begins.
And again, deadlines make deals with veterans due to report. That's staggered for different teams. But again, the big date is next Tuesday, and today is Wednesday. So let's see what happens between now and next Tuesday on a deal from Terry McLaurin. But things ramped up in a big way yesterday with that half-hour news conference. And I guess as years go by, especially if this ends badly and he leaves town, this will be known as the Eastern Motors News Conference Day. It's there have been some legendary news conferences in the history of this town, and that team, none bigger than John Riggins returning after a year away to say, I'm bored, I'm broken, I'm back. The Eastern Motors News Conference might be one that will long go down in lore of the history of this franchise. All right, coming up, Nick Saban coming back. Ooh, rumor mill flying hot and heavy. We'll get to that and more as we continue. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
It's a funny thing about people who compete for a living. It's like a drug. It's what drives them. And you can only play for so long. And when that ends, you got to find something to scratch that competitive itch with. And for some, it means coaching. They get into that. Some get into business. Magic Johnson became incredibly successful in business with the same competitiveness he had on the court. There are others that have done that. But when you get to the coaching part of it and you have a good long coaching run, at some point you leave that as well. And Nick Saban left in his 70s. There's reason to believe that he left before he really wanted to, because he was looking at the NIL. And in fact, he even talked about this. He said, his wife said to him, all these kids, all they want to know is how much money they're going to get paid. This isn't why we got into this business. So he got out. He's done very well in television. It's not like that this hasn't worked out for him after leaving coaching. He's been terrific on ESPN. He's really, and the commercials he does, he's great. He's terrific at it. But there is this drumbeat that's going on right now, and this kind of popped up the other day as Tony and Mike discussed last night on PTI.
ESPN analyst and former Alabama quarterback Greg McElroy said on his radio show yesterday that someone very much in the know was pretty adamant that Saban will return to coaching one day. Ole Miss coach and former Alabama offensive coordinator Lane Kiffin later said, quote, "I don't think he's done," close quote. Tone, could you see Nick Saban returning to coaching?
Yeah, so as a former sports writer, I would love to know who Greg McElroy's source is. Could it be Saban himself, since Saban coached him at Alabama? Maybe it's somebody who coached with Saban. Could it be Sarkisian? Could it be Bill Belichick? Can I see Saban returning coaching? Of course I can. Bill Belichick is coaching again. Pete Carroll is coaching again. And you're going to say, hold it. Nobody wants to coach with the NIL and the transfer portal. And Saban got out because he couldn't control his team the way he used to be able to control his team. Well, things evolved, Mike. I mean, again, look who's coaching. Look what Belichick did. He hired a GM so that he could be shielded from all the transactional stuff. I mean, it seems to me this is going to settle down. It seems to me it's going to be streamlined, the transfer portal and the NIL and all that money. And it seems to me possible that Saban would say, yeah, I've been out 2 years. I'll take another shot at this. And I would list a bunch of names, Mike, in another sport. Mike Krzyzewski, Jim Boeheim, Roy Williams, Tony Bennett, Jay Wright. Is it possible that maybe a couple of them look at it now and say, maybe I was a little too hasty? Because I think it'll settle down and you can go back to coaching.
It's not settled down at all. It's going to be wilder because people are going to offer money outside of whatever the salary cap is. You think the Texas A&M, just to pick a place, you think their oil-rich alums are going to say, yeah, we're going to pay attention to the cap? No, they're not. And Saban's not coming back. And I'm going to go Bill Cowher on you because there are some people who just enjoy their lives. And Saban seems to be one of them. He plays the best golf courses in the world every time he wakes up and wants to do it. I tell you something, Saban would be great. I'd be great at a lot of stuff. How about the czar of college football? Because college football is going to need one. All of college sports needs one. No, he's not coming back because Saban very quickly identified what the problem was going to be, the issues were going to be in college sports. And he got out the next day. He was smarter and quicker than everybody, and he ain't coming back.
I'm going to go the other way. And I'm just going to make it very, very simple here. And he's done great work. He's brilliant in that Verbo commercial, he is. But he's been out 2 years, and this is the life he's always had. And maybe he misses it.
Yeah, and I would jump onto what Tony said there at the end and offer the story of Matt Millen. I mean, it's a little bit different circumstance because it was, playing versus coaching. But I got to know Matt Millen a little bit over the years. And Matt Millen had a great NFL career. I think he was the first ever to win Super Bowls with 3 different teams. He won with the Raiders, he won with the 49ers, and he won with the Redskins. And he retired after the last Redskins Super Bowl and got into broadcasting and was doing great. He was considered to be the heir apparent to John Madden, first at CBS, and then when the contract moved over to Fox, he was with the number 2 team there, and it was assumed that when Madden left that Millen was going to take his place. And Millen was doing great, not just in TV, but he was doing the Monday night game on the radio, and he was doing a number of other things in broadcasting, which were, fulfilling him, I guess, to some degree. And he said, yeah, everything's going great here, and the second career that I'm pursuing is really working out. But here's the thing. He said, I can have a great broadcast, but when I leave the stadium, there's no win or loss on my record. And I miss that. I miss the competitive aspect of that. So he wanted to become a general manager. And he got that opportunity with the Detroit Lions. Now, as it turned out, he was terrible at it. He bombed and stayed. And I think he'd tell you that he stayed. They let him stay for like 5 or 6 years, but he did not do a good job in drafting and running the team and the whole thing. So he got back into broadcasting and never reached the heights that he had prior to taking that. But that competitive thing, even as great as you're seeing Nick Saban, and Saban's a lot older than Millen because when Millen made his move, he was in his 40s. Saban's in his 70s. He's at an age where it's really old to be coaching, but that competitive itch has to be there. Tony and Mike mentioned Bill Belichick. You got some news on him as well. He's chafing at some remarks made by Bob Kraft that Kraft, quote, took a big risk by hiring Belichick in 1999. Belichick responded in a statement to ESPN. It was he who took the big risk in joining a flailing franchise with few resources that was $10 million over the cap at the time. This was 1999. He said, as I told Robert multiple times through the years, I took a big risk taking the New England Patriots job. I already had an opportunity to be the head coach of the Jets, but the ownership situation was unstable. That was the Leon Hess owned Jets. Remember the resignation thing that he wrote on a napkin? I resign as HJ of the NYJ, or HC of the NYJ. He said, this is Belichick, I'd been warned by multiple previous Patriots coaches as well as other members of NFL organizations and the media that the New England job was going to come with many internal obstacles. I made it clear that we would have to change the way the team was managed to regain the previously attained success. Remember, he had been part of Bill Parcells' staff when they made it to the Super Bowl after the 1996 season and then lost to Green Bay. They go to the Jets together. They get the Jets back on track. It looks like, Belichick is going to take it to the next step, and then he winds up going to the Patriots in a trade. He said the Jets were a solid team after 3 years of rebuilding under Parcells, which included the AFC Championship game. This is Belichick to ESPN. Meanwhile, the Patriots organization has dismantled their 1996 championship team and become one of the worst in the AFC. It didn't help that they were $10 million over the cap heading into my first season, and we all know what he did. I mean, this Belichick and Kraft thing is taking on the kind of the odor of Trump and Musk right now. Not quite that bad. But what was a beautiful relationship for 24 years and the greatest dynasty in the history of the NFL with 6 Super Bowl championships, they're kind of taking little pot shots at each other now that their fates have gone downward and to a great degree. Kraft has never had any kind of success he didn't have success last year without Belichick, and he hasn't had success since Brady left. And with Belichick, he hasn't had any success since Brady left, and he's now coaching in college with, and especially the way this thing has unfolded with the girlfriend, he's probably not going to have any chance to get back in the NFL unless he has a spectacular year at UNC. So, it's getting a little chippy there, a little bit of frostiness between the two titans, the two guys who got rich and famous. Well, Kraft is already rich, but Belichick getting rich and famous off what he did with Bob Kraft. That's going to do it for me. Hope I get a little more traction out of my voice tomorrow, and we will see you back here tomorrow morning at 9 a.m.